So why don't we go ahead and get started? So first and foremost, thank you so much for
Okay.
taking time out of your busy schedule to attend this session. I am Mike Donahue. I am the program director for the computational engineering master's program. And what we want to do is really cover the program in fairly good detail to give you a really sense of what it is all about. And then really quite honestly, as we go through the material, please feel free to either in the chat just put any questions because I'm totally comfortable with it if we see questions come up to just address them when they're there. And I would encourage as many questions as you want because these have been very interactive sessions and we've had great discussions. So maybe a little bit of background about me. So I've been at Brown for about 7 years. I teach both at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level. I run the computational engineering program along with the two academic directors, and then I also in charge of developing master's programs in general for the School of Engineering. So that's my background. So now let's go to the next slide to really talk about what our agenda will be for today. So the idea, what we'd like to do is really give you two major things. First is what is the structure of the program because it's very unique, very different, and probably extremely different than what you're used to coming from your institution at the undergraduate level. And then Bryce is going to spend some time talking about Brown University and give you a little bit of insight into the whole application process and requirements. I can certainly weigh in a bit because we actually because we had record numbers of interest in the program and people that have completed their application. So we just got done reviewing a number, and so we're making offers for people. So I can definitely answer any questions about the application piece, but we'll have Bryce kind of cover that. So let's go into the program structure and then go into the student outcomes. Because this is usually the place that I always start with students, which is tell me a little bit about like what do you want to achieve? What is your perspective? So are you going into the program with an outcome of really trying to obtain a job in a specific field in a specific area, like potentially with one of the tech giants doing AI ML type of work? Is that really what you're trying to do, or is it something where you're very interested in doing a PhD program? Do you really want to use this as a bit of a stepping stone into obtaining a PhD? And we've had students that have explored all these different areas. And oh, by the way, we have tremendous flexibility with people switching midway through the program. It happens all the time where people come in thinking they want to do a PhD, and then all of a sudden they see the money out in the industry and they decide, okay, I'm going to go take the money, forget about this PhD, and vice versa, where we have people who come in where they just want to go into industry and they have very specific, target companies, target positions that they want to go to. And then they start doing some research, and then they find that their real true calling is going into a PhD program. And just from a ballpark perspective, about 60% of our students go on for for a PhD, and about 40% go on to industry after their degree. So now let's go to the next slide, which is now that we understand specifically what type of outcomes that you're trying to achieve, it's going to be really important to kind of, and it'll be applicable to this program. It's quite honestly any program that you look at or any program that you're thinking about doing, it's something to assess as you look at the program because most students they go straight to like, okay, what's the courses? which that's obvious. Like you definitely want to take courses that will give you new knowledge, new experience, new perspective. That's important. Then another key piece of it is a thesis. Now, a thesis actually can be applicable both to the professional side and also to the PhD side. And then we also have people who don't do a thesis and they go into even like a PhD program without the thesis. I think that's fine as well. Then obviously work experience becomes a big issue. Research, research is something that I actually get a ton of questions about research because actually we just had a number of students starting the spring semester. And so what we've been spending a lot of time about is of course doing the course planning, but then they want to know like, okay, which research labs can I go work in? And so from that perspective, that's always a very rich conversation to have here at Brown University. Then we have PhD workshops. So the idea is for students who are going to apply to the PhD programs, we know it's a daunting process. It's a challenging process, and it's a really difficult thing to do. And I personally do a ton of advising on the PhD side, and I just did a bunch of advising for this last cycle. So in the fall semester, I would have like weekly meetings with the people interested. And so far, the word that I heard is they're having great success, really, really good success with the PhD because right now they're in the interviewing phase, so they're getting a lot of interviews. So that's always a positive sign. Then we also, for the people that are interested, actually both from a professional perspective and also from a PhD program perspective, we have the SPS Career Center where they have resources in the Career Center to really help people with the challenge of getting a position in the desired company that they want to go to. So if we go to the next slide, the idea here in this slide is really just to show that there are ways to think about these different activities or support that could, so you can achieve your professional outcome. What I would say is obviously from a course perspective, yes. From a professional perspective or from a PhD perspective, it's important because everybody wants to see what kind of new courses that you take and what skills you developed in those courses. So that's totally appropriate. In terms of the thesis, we have, I would say, roughly about 30% of our students do a thesis. So it's not the majority. It's a small number. Now with the thesis, we do assign an academic advisor for your thesis. So the idea is you'd come up with a topic, you'd come up maybe with the research lab that you want to go work in, and then the idea is you then work with that professor during your time here at Brown to complete your thesis. So it's one of those things where you will be guided, and there will be significant support for you to be able to do that. In terms of work experience, there's really a couple different aspects that you can do. First, between like your first year and your second year, obviously you can get a summer internship of your choice. And that's generally a paid position that people obtain, and they're able to reach out and get. And so there is significant support within Brown University to help you achieve that summer internship. Additionally, like if you find it on your own, that's great too. We don't really have any guidance one way or the other what's a good internship or bad internship. It's really up to you. Then we have what we would call like more of a co-op experience. So this would be in your second year. What you'd be able to do is actually for one of your 8 courses, you'll be able to do this ELI, which is experiential learning immersion, where you're able to go to some type of internship or co-op experience, and then you'd be able to get course credit. And then you obviously would be able to get compensated for that position. And it works in terms of, we have a number of companies that we've worked with in the past that have provided these positions. But then again, if you have an interest in a specific company, maybe outside of the ones that we have, if you can obtain the job offer, that's all we really need to then approve it, so that you're able to achieve that. And I'm the person that would approve it. So as long as we can say that, like, okay, it aligns with, a computational engineering and science master's, then you're able to do it. Now, from a research perspective, quite honestly, you have a lot of options there. With first, like when you come to Brown, like day one, you can start doing research. Like even if you don't want to do a thesis or you're not interested in a PhD program, we love master students to be able to do research at Brown because Brown is a huge research institution. We're always looking for people to help with the research. So there's always tremendous number of opportunities that are available from a research perspective. So that's always out there. Now the nice thing in addition is that then we also, for the people who are doing a thesis, and let's say they're doing research, you can do actually two of the eight courses can be just your research. And that would be just you working with your academic advisor, your thesis advisor, doing the research. And then you get course credit for that as well. So and students use that. Now, once again, there's some people who've done a thesis and they haven't used this. There's other people who have used it for one of their credits, and other people that have used it for two of their credits. It really all depends on the student. Some people they'll just do research on the side and they'll publish that, and they want to get more courses, and that's totally fine. It's really up to the student. In terms of the PhD workshops, we run those. It's usually about once a month. We have a workshop. So during your entire time here, we'll have the opportunity for you to attend these different sessions. You come in, and it's like a nice little workshop where we just kind of take you through where we demystify the PhD process because it is a bit of a daunting process, and there's a lot of misinformation out there about what really happens. So we try to make it so that you get perfect information on that. Then obviously everybody has access to the Career Center, and that works out very, very well. And I would say the one thing that we haven't talked about is building relationships. And one of the things that we're going to talk about later is the fact that we're a relatively small program. I would say that one of the big things that's different for us is you do get to know the faculty pretty well. You do get to know the classmates very well. And so the idea is like I'm right now, I write tons of letters of recommendation all the time. I did actually this morning, I just finished two for people. Then before I got on the call, there's somebody that wants five letters of recommendation. So that's something that we do all the time. And I think relationships are very important, either from a professional perspective or a PhD perspective. So I always feel that that's something that you should always spend and invest time building those relationships. So that kind of talks about the outcomes and the program support. So now let's go talk about the student experience, because I think at the beginning of the call, I gave you a sense that the master's program is going to be different than your undergraduate experience. And we found this to be true because usually the undergrad experience, it's relatively impersonal. A lot of our students come from fairly large, STEM universities. You find that at the undergrad level, it's very, very structured, many required courses. You tend to just have courses like you're an engineer, boom, you're going to do engineering courses. If you do CS, you're going to do mostly just CS courses. And then there's, very limited research. And really very minimal advising because many times like at the undergrad level, it's like if you have a question, just look at the course requirements. I mean, there's no doubt as to what you do. It's really the big question you have is for what are the electives that you want to take. That's many times what you have to do. But any of the core STEM courses are pretty much defined in terms of what you're doing. Now, in terms of the master's program, or at least here at Brown, I mean, we're kind of the home of the open curriculum where you kind of make your own plan. So it does tend to be, we're very unstructured. We don't have any core requirements. We can't tell you like you have to take these two courses or these five courses. I mean, you get to pick every single one of the courses that you take. So it's very unstructured, no required courses. And then the other nice thing is you can select the courses from engineering, you can select the courses from CS, you can accept or go after courses from applied math, mathematics, all the different STEM fields. So that is no problem at all to be able to do that. We do have like really unlimited research opportunity. I mean, I have found that with students, even two students came in this week, they were looking for research, and we identified the ideal lab for them very quickly, and then I gave them, some guidance and some advising as to how to try to get into the lab. So that works pretty well. So we do a lot of advising through the process. And so now let's go to the next page, which really gets into the nuts and bolts of the program. So in terms of a starting point, you can traditionally we have a fall start. That's when the vast majority of our students start. But recently, it's been really interesting is we've had a lot of interest in a spring start. So we've got flexibility with our courses that you can do a spring start. So we actually just started doing that this year, and we had two students join us in the spring start. So it works out very, very well. And actually just today they got their academic plan approved. So that worked out pretty well. Obviously, we've got the coursework. You've got any of the industry or research focus experiences. You have the thesis option. And really, for the people who apply to this program, it's really any STEM degree. It's not like we're going to look for engineering, or it's not like we're going to look for math or applied math. Because even yesterday, I had a conversation with somebody who's coming from an organic chemistry background. That's obviously in the STEM field and the sciences field. So that's totally fine. So it's not like we're looking for any specific type of concentration. And then for us, we're not really targeting a certain GPA or anything. We really like having people with a GPA greater than 3.0. Now we'll consider candidates with less than if you can explain it. And even the last, actually, for the people that we just admitted, they all were above the 3.0 GPA. But other than that, we have really a very holistic viewpoint of we want to see the whole person, and we really want to understand, like, why do you need this degree? Because that's where we really get into some questions is just like, you could be like a perfectly qualified candidate, but we can't understand why you need this degree. So that's one of the big guidances I give for people applying to the program is just make sure that you articulate the reason why. And then also I'm very happy to chat with you. So if you didn't get enough about the program through this, you can always book an appointment with me that we'll talk about at the end to chat further. And I'm also happy. I just had a number of people send me their statements, their personal statements, to give them feedback on that piece. So I'm happy to do that because I just want to make sure that this program aligns with what you're trying to do. So now if we go to the next slide, we talk about some of the big thing is, I would say first and foremost, and this is I think most important for students, is delivering against your student outcomes. It's really one of the things that we're very proud of is students are achieving the outcomes that they want to get. So for example, we would have people who out of undergrad, they applied to, let's say, Stanford and MIT as their top choices. They got into other PhD programs, but they didn't get into those PhD programs. And so they came into our program and then they reapplied and they were able to get into Stanford or MIT or really whatever university they wanted. So we're pretty good about doing that. We're a very small program. I know in talking to potential candidates, they're looking at much, much bigger programs because, there are some very, very big programs, really excellent programs, but they're very large. But we're a small program. The other thing that's a little bit different with our program is that for the way we structure our master's courses is that you will see people from computational engineering in your classes. You'll see people from other master's programs in your classes. You'll also see PhD candidates in your classes. That's one of the things that's a little bit different is that we design the courses so that you can have both master students and PhD programs in the course. So that gives you a little bit more of a larger pool people to talk to and become or build relationships with. Now, the big thing that we focus on is flexibility because we not only allow you to pick your 8 courses and choose which outcome that you're trying to do, we also allow you to change it at any point in time. In fact, I was just sending out notes to the 12 people this semester who decided to change your academic plan. So we were giving them feedback as to, half of them we accepted, half we gave feedback to. So you have tremendous flexibility, and we really have a great discussion around really what you're trying to do. This is a very resource-rich environment. Obviously, you're in an Ivy League institution, so from a faculty, from advising, from a career prep perspective, we're very strong. And then obviously you get access to the Brown Alumni Network, which is very strong and has penetrated really many industries. So now let's go to really the heart and soul of the program, which is the faculty. And I would say these are the two academic advisors, Professor Vasilevs and Professor Karniadakis. They're the ones that would be approving your academic plans. And actually, within the applied math world, Professor Karniadakis is, I believe, the #1 Google scholar in that topic. And so he's the one that actually has been taking a lot of the master's students that we have and then bringing them in as PhD students because he has really unlimited funding. So he's able to take on students pretty aggressively. So that's an outcome that some people have had is they do their research under Professor Karniadakis and then come back into his PhD program. But the faculty is one of our strongest components. Now, on the next slide, I wanted to really emphasize that not only do you have the flexibility to go after any of the different departments within Brown universities, and we have the three main departments that people take courses from, so School of Engineering, Applied Math, and Computer Science. But we kind of mandate that you definitely need to take at least 2 courses from School of Engineering, 2 courses from Applied Math, and 2 courses from the computer science world. Now, if you can convince your advisor to make the change a little bit, that's fine too. But that's where we have tremendous flexibility to be able to look at those courses. So on the next slide, what I tried to do is now so theoretically, that's what should happen and that's what should be available. But now practically speaking, what does it actually look like? And this is where I just took, probably the last I don't know, it's like probably 3 years of data to really see where are people spending their time. So what you can see is that for our students, they've taken over 102 different courses, 26 different courses in applied math, 21 in CS, and 36 in engineering. And then they've even taken courses outside of those 3 departments, and that's totally fine. Once again, as long as you can get your academic advisor to approve it, then you could take those courses. And then you can kind of see that then on a per student basis, it's like about the highest number is 3.2 courses for engineering, 3 courses for applied math, and 1.2 courses for CS, and then 0.7 for all others, which gets you to a total of 8.1. Now to graduate, you need 8. What we do have is we have some students that like taking extra courses, and that's totally fine. You can totally take more courses if you would like. You can't take less courses, but you definitely can take more courses. So anyways, and then on the right-hand side, I tried to show some of the types of courses that you can see. And you can see like deep learning or artificial intelligence, machine learning. You can take those courses. We have them in ATMA and CS and engineering, all the above. So you get a bit of a sense as to what the different types of courses that are available. Now, if you go to the next slide, we're going to talk about the co-op programs. This was where in your second year, either in your fall or your spring semester, you're able to do a co-op work experience. And we have actually Professor Ted Tracy who's responsible for this program. So he's the lead of this program. So he's the one that is actively going out and getting companies for you to get positions with. He'll be working with you to find positions. He'll be working with you to potentially find new companies that you want to bring into the program. So that works very, very well. And he's an excellent resource because he actually comes from industry. So he spent most of his year out in the Valley in California working in the tech industry. Then the next slide kind of doubles down on the co-op piece. And we have throughout the year, we have these master's programs, we have these STEM co-op PEMs where you basically get to hear from different students or graduates who've actually done the co-op experience, and then they can give you a perspective as to what do they find, all the way from what was it like, how did they get the job, what was the experience, and then how did that lead them to the outcome that they needed. Now, on the next slide, we're going to switch over from the co-op side into more the research side. So now with research, it's kind of similar to the courses where from a research perspective, we have a lot of students that do research in APMA, engineering, CS, but you can actually go to other labs. You can go to any place. There's a question of when master's data-enabled computational engineering and science starts. Well, I'll interpret it, then you can tell me if I'm getting it right. So first, generally, from about 90% of the people, it will start in the fall semester. So in this case, it'd be the fall of 26. Now you can also start in the spring of 27 if you want. That's no big deal. And even if, like, let's say you get accepted into the fall, you can defer to the next fall if you want. Now, in terms of, if I interpret this as when did we actually start offering this program? It's been about 5 years that this program's been in existence. So relatively new program. It was really interesting because we had, and I was actually, all three of us, myself and the two academic directors, we were the ones that recommended this program, got it through the approval process. We actually, quite honestly, we thought more people would do the professional side than the PhD side. We've actually been pleasantly surprised at that. So it's a relatively new program. We keep changing it all the time. Like, actually, the co-op program is new. The Spring Start is new. So we always love getting feedback from students. But thank you so much for that question. Now, in terms of the funding for research, there's lab funding. There is funding that's available from the university to be able to do it. So there is because typically when you're doing research, you will be able to get paid for that as well. And then this is the process that I recommend, which is really just identify the research labs, then really understand who is the professors in there, and actually, it's also not only the professor but also the postdocs that are in the lab and the PhD students that are in the lab. Because then it's good to develop relationship with them as well. Then you identify a few labs that you go out for, then reach out to the people, obviously get accepted into the lab, then secure the funding, and then obviously publish the findings. So that's the piece. Can students choose both co-op and research during their master's study? Yes, absolutely. No, 100%. You can, either from the perspective of switching, because, like, let's say somebody started doing the research and then they switched over to going industry, or vice versa. Or, quite honestly, if you believe that that's an integrated part of your program, and especially too, is, let's say, for instance, you're trying to go for like a national lab, or like more of like a researchy, because even like, Google and some of the big tech companies, they have more research groups, and then Meta has a big research group as well. So there you could actually make the case of you need to do your research. You need to also be able to do an internship or a co-op experience with those companies. So absolutely, you can do both, 100%. We're not going to put you in one area or the other. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. The next slide is just really a specific opportunity, and this is something that's brand new that we did. Is For people that want to do like digital technologies health, we actually got some funding for this pilot program where you take first year master students. We actually train you in like optical wearable sensors, AI enabled embedded platforms, kinematic sensors. And then we do 1 semester of seminar style presentations and then working on the research. So that's a very unique and different research opportunity that's available and something that we were able to get some funding to be able to offer to students. And so the last slide that I'll be covering is basically all, because I mentioned about relationships and people, and these are all the people that are available to you when you come to Brown University in this program. Obviously, there I'm on the lower right hand corner, and I'm always available for people to reach out. I've had actually I had both of the Spring Start students that were in my office this week. We were talking about both research and course planning. So I'm always available to be able to do that. I actually have like bookable calendar slots that are open for students to come by. But you can see it's a big team. It's a big team, and so whether it's anything from an administration perspective, from a career perspective, or from a program perspective, we really have you covered. And if there's anything, I mean, I find most students are pretty self-sufficient. They're not very needy, but I'm always telling people to channel their neediness because we're really here to serve. So with that said, let me turn it over to Bryce, where she'll spend more time talking about the university and the application process.
Awesome. Next slide, please. Awesome. So let's go into a little bit about Brown on the next slide, please. Cool. So Brown is located within Providence, Rhode Island. That is the capital city of our little state. It is small but mighty. It's got such a good community feel. The people of Providence really look out for one another and accept each other kind of as this large community, which creates a really great energy within the city. It is a small city, but it's walking, driving, biking friendly. A lot of students asking, do I need a car? And that is up to you. There is a very walking friendly, it's got a good walk friendly score. But there's also a lot of good public transportation available. And as a Brown University student, you will get access to free ridership on both the Brown University shuttles as well as the Rhode Island Transit Authority buses. Um, we are known for our diverse and famous restaurant and food scene. It is currently Providence Restaurant Week, when all of the fun, fancy, unique restaurants within Providence offer some discounted prefix meals to really get people to explore the different restaurants. And we always look forward to that. There's also a really great art, music, and entertainment scene. Providence is the arts capital of New England. We also have the Rhode Island School of Design within Providence. And as a student, you get free access to that museum as well. We've got lots of fun, different local bands too. If you go anywhere on, Friday, Saturday night, you're at the brewery, you're at a coffee house, you're gonna see live music and get to know a lot of really cool small bands. Summer is really when Providence kind of opens up and comes alive. We've got weekly farmers markets, we've got a vintage flea market just across from my office in the jewelry district every weekend. We're also close to different types of nature. We've got the woods, but we've also got beaches. Rhode Island is the ocean state, which comes from our state having the most percentage of shoreline than any other state. So lots of ocean access. And with that, lots of swimming, maybe get a friend with a boat. Lots of oysters are very popular. And then there's lots of good hiking trails as well. So if you are a nature lover, that is readily available for you. But also if you're more interested in things like art, music, food, this is an excellent place as well. And then there is the public transportation that's really popular as well. You can catch a train to Boston, you can take the ferry boat to Newport, you can take the bus really anywhere in the city, anywhere in the state, I believe. So it's a very fun, lively, and accessible place. If we go to the next slide, please. We can look at the neighborhoods. So this looks like a big map. It's not. It's just the small neighborhoods within the city of Providence itself. Most of these neighborhoods that have the little heart icon on them are our most popular neighborhoods for current students to live. They are pretty walkable. Most of the buildings within Brown's campus are located on College Hill, but there are quite a few, including my office, the medical school, and others that are located in that downtown area, that little green shape in the middle. We're kind of known as the West Side versus the East Side, but they're both really fun. East Side is very artsy, very thrifty, very fun and unique, lively energy. And then Federal Hill in downtown, that's where a lot of our restaurants are. That's where the Performing Arts Center is. There's lots of different things that you can go do in Providence, and it kind of welcomes all different types of interests and walks of life. On the next slide, please. I'll touch base on some of our centers and offices that we have within Brown's campus. So something that's really important at Brown is recognizing that you are a student, but you are a person first. And in order to succeed academically, you also need to be succeeding personally. So we've got all sorts of different resources for whatever you're looking for, be that some more academic support. You can find that in the Sheridan Center. They've got lots of different tutoring, English language teaching, writing centers. We've got the Center for Master Student Excellence if you're looking for career support, some professional development planning. That also houses our Student Affairs Office. We have the health and wellness services available because God knows it, flu season comes around and you'll get knocked out for a week or two by that. So the Health and Wellness Center will always be there to help you kind of get back on your feet. We've got the Office of Chaplains and Religious Life. This is not just church, this is all of our different religious walks of life on campus that we want to be able to support here. And they work hand in hand with our Office of Diversity and Inclusion that host a lot of different identity-based centers around the campus. And then we also have our Loving You Fly Center, the Undocumented First Gen Center, and Low Income Student Center. And they have all sorts of resources. And we do a specific presentation with them in the spring. So keep an eye out for Belong at Brown emails, and you can sign up for some more sessions to learn more in depth about those sessions there. Next slide, please. So student support and academic services. Again, we want to be sure that we are supporting you on your journey of obtaining your master's degree at Brown. So starting with the Center for Master Student Excellence, that is located within the Division of Masters and Professional Programs in the Jewelry District. That's also where my office is. They are great at academic counseling as well as career services, and I will go into them a little bit more in depth on a later slide. But I also want to touch base on that Sheridan Center for Teaching and Learning. Like I said, if you are looking for some writing support, if you're looking for English language support, if you're looking just for some tutoring for your general classes, that's a really, really great place to go. Maybe if you can't make office hours or the study sessions planned for your program, that's another good resource. And then we also have our 24/7 administrator on call service, as well as our student accessibility services. And they are really great resources. I believe the Student Accessibility Services has a map of our campus that ranks how accessible all of the sidewalks and all of the buildings are around our campus. So that's really helpful if that's something you need to know. We also offer counseling and psychological services on campus. And then our Office of International Equity and Diversity is incredibly responsive and really wants to get to know everyone on campus. So if you ever have any questions about student identity centers, they are a great office to reach out to. If we want to move to the next slide. Awesome. This is my career support and professional development slide. So within our division of master's and professional programs, we offer our Center for Master Student Excellence, and they work with you on every step through your career search. Whether you're starting out of, I want to study computational engineering, but where does that get me a job? What kind of career opportunities are even available? They can help you walk through that. They'll help you with workshops on your resume and your cover letter, on your LinkedIn, on your salary negotiations, all the way through that job search for you. We do have a STEM specific career advisor as well. So she can help out with some of those nuances that come with being a STEM specific major. I do want to say that those resources are offered in individual as well as large group sessions. They want to host a good variety of events, so they meet you at your comfort level. And then we also have different events. We've got career fairs. Again, we've got those job workshops, those resume workshops. You'll receive access to a website called Handshake once you're admitted and enrolled. And that is where all of the job and internship opportunities that are Brown hosted will be posted. So you can always look for an opportunity to work on campus. And then you'll get access to Brown Connect, where you can connect with all of our alumni. Brown's been around for a really long time and has a lot of different programs, and alumni are always wanting to get involved with current students. So that is a great resource there. They will always be sharing different resources that they come across. So that's a really nice resource there. And then you have departmental career advisors as well, as Mike spoke about. Next slide, please. Great. So let's get into the application requirements. Next slide. So what are we looking for when we are looking at your application and looking for the perfect candidate? We take a holistic view of our applications. So we want to look at all the pieces of what makes you who you are and how you're going to study in this program. So first, yes, we are looking at academic readiness. We're looking at your GPA, what coursework you've taken, your STEM prerequisites, your grades. We want to make sure that you demonstrate a really strong math and engineering background that makes sure you'll be prepared for the rigorous coursework ahead of you. But we're also looking into your specific goals, your research and work experience. We want to know what you've done so far to kind of prepare yourself for a master's degree. If you've looked at any career opportunities that you're interested in, what kind of research have you done? What kind of work and volunteer opportunities have you done? And then what specifically do you want to gain out of this program? On your statement of purpose, the pro tip outline that I usually give is start with where your interests kind of emerged. What kind of started your passion for this project first? And then really dive into what you've been doing. What are you studying in school right now? What classes have been interesting to you? What projects have you done that have really expanded your interest within computational engineering, within engineering specifically? And then showcase your goals and aspirations. Tie that into why this specific program and what am I going to get out of this degree program that's going to step me up in the right direction towards my career goals. The other thing we look at is your letters of reference. We're looking for strongly written letters of recommendation. The other big piece of advice I usually give regards the letters of rec, you want to find people who can speak about your unique skill set and how you are an asset to the classroom. Um, Find someone that can be a professor, that could be your advisor, a personal mentor, someone you have worked for, someone you've done research under, who can speak to your unique skills and how you learn and then apply that knowledge within your work. Sometimes we get letters of rec from a lecturer, professor who taught this student 1 out of 100. And all they can really speak on is, it's a tough class. They got an A, they did a good job, but I don't really know them. And that's not the strongest letter of reference. We want someone, maybe you got a B in that class, but your professor can really speak to, they might have struggled on this week, but on these other projects, here's where they really excelled. Here's how they really showed their skills and showed their knowledge and how they apply that in that class, in this project, in this research world. Really speak to who you are because we want to know uniquely who our applicants are. We want to know all about you. So that's kind of an overall of what makes a great candidate. Next slide, please. Let's go over the base requirements. First, we want transcripts. These can start as unofficial transcripts when you submit your application, but before coursework starts, we do need to see those official transcripts. We also want to see a CV or a resume. Again, let us see your work experience, what you're involved in, what you've volunteered in, your educational background, and then that personal statement. It should be within 1,000 to 1,500 words, again, outlining your goals and relevant experience. And then what you would like to research in your field. Your letters of recommendation there are 3 of them required. And then if English is not your first language, or you've not attended a school where English was the main language of instruction, we will need to see your English language testing exams. The two that we accept are the TOEFL as well as the IELTS. And I'll go into a little bit more information in that in a future slide. And then a note that the GRE is not required. Um, but if you want to, you can submit it as a part of your application. Next slide, please. Great. So let's go into some deadlines. Our spring deadlines have passed, but for fall, we are still open for priority review submission. That first deadline is February 1st, so it is coming up in just a few days. But if you're not quite prepared for a submission in a few days, we are still open until April 1st. The priority deadline, we are going to look at that batch of applications first and start filling in some spots. And then that final submission deadline is when we will fill the rest of the cohort. And for fifth year, so if you are currently a undergraduate student at Brown University, you can apply for the fifth year program, and that deadline is May 1st. Next slide, please. Great, so here we can get into that standardized testing. Again, the GRE is not required for this program, but we do accept it if you want to submit it as part of your application, if you happen to have taken it. And then the English language proficiency exams, the two we accept are the TOEFL and the IELTS. A frequently asked question is if we accept the Duolingo exam, and that answer is no, we do not. So again, that requirement for the exams are you are a non-native English speaker without a degree from an institution where English was the primary language of instruction. Another way to phrase that, if you are an English language native speaker, you do not need to take this test. If you have obtained a degree, a 4-year degree from an institution where English is the primary language, you do not need to take these. But if you are taking them, the recommended minimum score is a 90 on the TOEFL or a 7 on the IELTS. They are scored a little bit differently, but these are the equitable result scores. And the code for that when you're submitting is 3094. That is the Brown University specific code. Next slide, please. All right, so what are your next steps? You're excited, you want to apply. Make sure to submit your application. Start your application if you haven't already. The link to apply is right there, but I will also be putting it in the chat for you. And let's see. Make sure that's right. There you go. So that is in the chat now. You can learn more about the program by attending sessions like these. We will be hosting a couple more info sessions, I believe. Or you can schedule a time to speak with Mike. That's the QR code. That's a good screenshotable slide. You can screenshot it and save that QR code for later, find a time to talk with him. And then submit your materials and requests as soon as possible. When you're requesting your letters of recommendation, make sure to give people time to write a good letter. You can provide your statement of purpose and your resume to your requester. Say, these are some of the skills I'd really like you to highlight within this letter. And then the more you can give them, the more well off they are to write that strong letter of recommendation that aligns with the story that you're telling in your application. And then remember that April 1 is that final application deadline for the fall cohort. Next slide, please. All right. I think we can go ahead and open it up for Q&A. Let's see. So you're going to put those in the chat when you have questions, and Mike and I can answer those. When does...
Okay, so
Mhm.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so yeah, I think this applies to the one slide that I did in terms of the pilot program. It doesn't require an additional application. I mean, this is just one where when you come to Brown, that is a program that's available to you. And I think they have a pretty good uh, capability to absorb more students. So I don't think there's going to be any limitations in terms of the number of students that they can accept. And that program is open to any master's student for, and especially if they want to start with first year master's students. So yeah, all of you would be available for it. What about, you know, what you could do is for information about this program, I don't know if on the slide there's like anything that's there, but you can always like send me an email and I'll type my email in there and I can see if I can get more information because I think there might be a presentation or something that I have because we have talked about it a bunch. But I'll put my email in the chat and you could just send me a note and I'll try and find something. Okay, so then this is good question on wait, let's see. Because I think we have the quick question if my professor submits the recommendation letters after 2.1 or 2.1,
February
but I do
1st.
submit, yeah, February 1st. Am I still counted as yes, yeah, no, is if you get the application in, and this happens all the time. This happens all the time, is because actually what I do is when you submit the application, then I check to see if you've got the letters of recommendation and always the letters of recommendations aren't completed. So I reach out to you to go bug them. And then I've also bugged people. So the other thing too is if you need me to bug people, but yeah, if you get in before the February 1st, yeah, we'll as soon as we get your full packet, we'll give you an answer within a week or two. So that is totally no problem at all. Okay, so then another excellent question: how many courses do students typically take per semester? Typically, it's two. Typically, it's two. That's the general thing. We have. It's funny because like when people first start, there's so many people that want to do like three, which you can do. You can take three if you want. But I would always say that like in your first semester, take two. Later on, once you're acclimated to Brown University and the academic rigor here, then definitely feel free to take three. I think that would be a problem, but most people take two. I could share about the graduate student network and organizations within DECES and the broader community. I think this is a very personal question because it really comes down to what kind of network do you want to be able to achieve in terms of some people, let's say, want to get into a research network and really focus on that. And so then you have that sense of community there. There's other people that want to do more of the professional network, and that's a very different set of students that are going after that. So part of it is, I would say, there's every type of network that you can imagine here, and it's almost like choose your journey, choose your path of self-discovery. So it's really up to you. But there are so many different uh, organizations that are out there. Let's see. So we had could you share the recording of this event with me? I think we are sharing that. Is that right, Bryce?
Yes, it is being recorded and will be sent out via email within the next few days.
Okay. So as a new program, what new developments are underway? Do you anticipate the department to establish more industry connections to support students in the professional tracks? I would say that we're always looking for changes and modifications to the program. What we have played around with is new courses. So we actually got some new professors that are in that. What they've done is um, they work in the area of hardware enabled AI ML. So there's some of the new leading professors. So we have some new courses that are talking about hardware enabled because let's talk about AI ML. I mean, it's really driven by the hardware, but some people are very interested in learning more about the hardware side of things. And so we've just established that. In terms of the industry connections, absolutely. This is one of the areas where we've just pushed into offering this because this is brand new in terms of the co-op program as being available. And then we put Professor Tracy in charge of it. So we are, and a big part of his role and responsibility is to really go through and develop those relationships. So, and that's the other thing too is if people have specific companies that they're interested in, we could always try to add those as part of the program. Okay, I wonder how many students from the program last year entered the industry. If you have the data, I think what I mentioned at the beginning of the call was about 60% of our students go into the PhD program, and then about 40% go into industry. Now, interesting in industry, they tend to migrate more towards the startup world. Because and you've probably seen it in the recent days. There's a ton of AI ML startups. They're offering a lot of money to recent graduates, so that's the percentages for you.
Awesome. I think we got one more. About the three tracks, any difference with regard to application difficulty or just simply arrangement difference?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Um, Actually, we don't even take the tracks into account when we look at a an application. You know, we just view the candidate kind of like what Bryce said is we look at the candidate holistically to really it's probably I would say two or three major questions that we're addressing. First is does the candidate have the intellectual horsepower to do the program? So do they have the academic credentials and to have success in the program? So that's probably priority question number one. Priority question number two is does the student really need this program? Because we do get people who apply to the program and they get a yes for the first one, but we didn't in the application we didn't see why they needed the program, and so then we will say no to the student just because their personal statement just didn't align with the outcome that we think that we want to do. Because for us, it's really making the case that you want to be a leader in either the computational engineering and science academic area, so going on for a PhD, or in industry and be recognized as a leader in AI/ML in industry. So that's what we're looking for. So those are really the two major things. We don't get into like we're not trying to balance for like so many people go into PhD, so many people go into industry. For us, we're indifferent. We don't really care. And the other thing is we also know that people can change their viewpoint, change their mind. So we don't really take into account the tracks. It's okay if you mention which track you want to do. That's great. That's fine. But we don't take into account when we admit students. Okay, how much do you weigh short answer responses versus statements of purpose in the application? I feel like there is some overlap in the information conveyed between those in my application. I'm not sure where the best place my talking points so that my reader gets the full. Oh, this is a good question. Without too much repetition. I would say, at least for me, I really go to the statement of purpose, quite honestly. I do that. Like it's 2 pages. I'm going to read it, and that's what I do. Because I kind of breeze through like the short statements. I kind of breeze through, like, yep, check the box, check the box. It's good not to say anything that contradicts your personal statement in the short statements. But I think for me, I focus mostly on the personal statement. Obviously, then obviously the transcript. I look at the transcript, and then I go to the letters of recommendation to kind of see what people say. Just like Bryce said, is I just want somebody that has a good perspective on what you did. And in fact, today, this morning, I was talking to somebody, a professor from Cambridge, who wrote a letter of recommendation because he did a nice job, and it was like, the person top 1%, and so then, I said, well, give me some detailed examples. Like I want to know. And he had like a great detailed example. So it's exactly what Bryce says is pick people that will be able to represent you. But that's kind of how, at least I personally go through. And I think that's similar to what the other two professors do as well. But great questions. Excellent questions.
Um, So I just put our admission team email in the chat. So if you have any other questions after today, please feel free to reach out to us. I believe Mike also put his email up there too. So you can reach out to us at any time if you have any other questions after today. All right.
Well, thank you so much for attending the session. And then, once again, we're here to support you in your journey. So let us know how we can help. But thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.